We have a question here. The question says, two sample z-tests for the difference between means. The question says, a credit card watchdog group claims that there is a difference in the mean credit card debts of households in California and Illinois. The results of a random survey of 250 households from each state are shown at the left-hand side. So for California, it seems like the mean is 4,777, and N1, the sample size is 250. For the second state, Illinois, the mean is 4,866 with sample size 250. So now the question is, by assumption that the samples are independent from each other and the population standard deviations from past studies are given, do you support the claim or not? So this is the question that we want to answer. Note that we have two populations right now. We took two samples from two populations, and we are interested in forming a hypothesis test and analyze these data. But we need some basic information first. First, we need to know what is the definition of dependent and independent samples. Two samples are called independent when the sample selected from one population is not related to the sample selected from the second population. Two samples are dependent when each member of one sample corresponds to a member of the other sample. Dependent samples are also called paired samples or matched samples. So another name for dependent sample is paired sample or matched sample. On the exam, on the quiz, on the homework, when you see these three, dependent, paired, and matched, they are related to one content. So independent samples, sample 1 is different from sample 2. They have no relation. But for dependent samples, the members of the first sample are related to the members of the second sample. Let's take a look at one example here. In this example, question says, classify each pair of samples as independent or dependent and justify your answer. So you have two populations and you took a sample from the first population and you take another sample from the second population. The first sample says, hey, the weight of 65 college students before their freshman year begins. And the second sample is the weights of the same 65 college students after their freshman year. Are these two samples dependent or independent? Are they related together or not? Well, we have the same body of students, am I right? So since you have the same body of students, these samples are dependent. The same people are weighted before and after. So you have dependent samples. Next example. You have two populations and you took two samples, one from the first population and the other one from the second population. The first sample is the scores for 38 adult males on a psychological screening test for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The second sample is taken from females. So you have scores for 50 adult females on a psychological screening test for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So since you have two samples that have nothing to do with each other, it means that you have independent samples. These samples are independent from each other. It is not possible to form a pairing or relation between the members of samples. The sample sizes are different and the data represent scores for different individuals.